Part 2. Testimonies of Grief. The hardest stories to tell are the ones who stop listening to. The war in Ethiopia has given birth to thousands of such stories. Stories buried under rubble, lost in mass graves or waste, but only the candlelit homes by mothers who have memories pen like prayer. There are no political students. There are no political statements. There are no statics led at the end of the news. These are human lives interrupted, disfigured, erased, while government sharpens. These are human lives interrupted, disfigured, erased, while the government sharpens their tongues and the world moves on. In Tigray, mother stood by remains of what used to be her home. Her youngest son, age 14, had gone out to fetch water. He never returned. They found his body weeks later, face down, near the river bank, riddled with bullets. She didn't speak for 3 days. When she finally opened her mouth, she sighed. I sent him to fetch water, not to fetch this. In the Amara region, particularly in places like North Gondar, Bahadar, and Kobo, the stories repeat like a curse. A young boy's promised survival if they fought only to be buried in shallow graves marked with stones. A mother, the father, and the Ratabur buried 3 sons. He dug their graves with the same hands he once used to teach them how to write the alphabet. One by one, they were recreated.
Graves, if you have heard specialists on Ethiopian, please share this video, like and subscribe to spread the truth about suffering in Ethiopia. Join our challenge now, comment.
They were recreated, 2 by the regional forces, 1 by the federal military. None came home. Now he sits alone under a fig tree, whispering their names to the wind, hoping the wind remembers them, even if the country does not. He told a visiting priest, they died under different flags, but they bled the same. The injured are not just the dead. They are the ones who are forced to live. In hospital across both regions, young men lie in the silence, arms gone, legs amputated, eyes blinded. They stare at ceilings for hours, not from boredom but from despair. One 90-year-old from Tigray who lost both legs in a drone strike site. They told me I'm lucky to alive, but no one tells me how to live. In Desi, a 17-year-old girl. In Desi, a 17-year-old girl was hit by shrapnel while hiding in a church during crossfire. Her right eye was destroyed. When she cried, her tears mixed with blood and dripped onto her white dress. Her mother now covers her with a scarf every time someone visits, not to hide a wound, not to protect her from a shame, as if being a victim of war is something to apologize for. The grief is not equal, but it's universal. It does not ask for ethnicity. It does not war for politics to settle. It simply arrives unexpected, brutal, and permanent. Across Tigray and Amhara, thousands of mothers walk to markets alone now. Thousands of fathers eat meals in silence. Thousands of children sleep in empty beds, afraid that they will wake up and realize in silence it's not a dream. Even weddings, those once joyful eruptions of dance and drum, are quieter now. People still get married, but not like before. The laughter feels thinner. The nations shorter, because every celebration feels like betrayal when the dead are not yet buried in peace. We speak of soldiers as heroes, but we do not speak for the mothers who gave them up. We do not build statues for the woman who birthed a boy, fed him, clothed him, loved him, and then watched him be claimed by the government of war. She has no monument, no medal, no speech, just a folded cloth, just a photo hanging in a cracked wall. In Tigray, one mother walks barefoot every Sunday to the same church her son used to sing in. She kneels and kisses the floor where his voice once echoed. She kneels and kisses the floor where his voice once echoed. She told the journalist, he used to sing hymns to God, now I sing hymns to him. In both regions, another testimony is emerging, a testimony of children who will grow up without memory, only trauma. A 9-year-old in Sakota refused to go to school because, as he told his grandmother, what if the soldiers came back? He does not understand politics. He does not know what the Constitution says. All he knows is fear. and fear, once planted in child's heart, become a lifelong harvest. Let us not to lie ourselves. Let's not to lie to ourselves. This war is not a mistake. It's not accident. It's a result of choices, human choices made by men who believed their power was more important than people. Every bullet has a sender. Every wound has an architect. While leaders argue over dialogue and sovereignty, the people die in silence, or worse, live in pieces. The sorrow in Ethiopia is not abstract. It has names, faces, birthdays, and favorite songs. It has no justice. So what is grief in Ethiopia? It's not just mourning dead. It's living with an absence. It's cooking for 5 when only 3 are left. It's keeping your son's toothbrush in place, hoping the day you will hear footsteps that never come. It's knowing your government will never say your son's name. It's a wound that never closes because every day it's reopened by silence, by denial, by indifference. This part of the story is not covered because tomorrow more mothers will cry. Because tomorrow more mothers will cry. Tomorrow more sons will live. And the war machine, created by politics in silence, will continue unless someone dares to speak, unless someone dares to break the cycle. Part 3. The War of the Powerful. The Deeds of the Poor. War in Ethiopia was never truly between Tigray and Amhara. No, that's a version they sell to the poor. That's the illusion whispered into the ears of young boys before they are handed rifles and pushed toward this. The real war, the war that no one wants to name, is the war between those who have power and those who pay for it. The poor do not start wars. They do not draft declarations, sign military budgets, or organize press conferences. The poor are simply given grief and called patriots. They are offered this and expected to call it duty. In Addis Ababa, leaders debate national unity. In Bahar Dar, in Mekelle, mothers bury unity with their sons, while officials debate borders. Those who live near them see their homes shelled. There, in Bahar Dar, in Mekelle, mothers bury unity with their sons, while officials debate borders. Those who live near them see their homes shelled. Their crops burned and their neighbors turned into enemies by propaganda that tastes like a prison, but is served like a breakfast. The elite do not die in war. They invest in it. They benefit from it. Every speech calling for resistance, every call to arms, every televised outrage, its performance, and the stage is soaked in blood. In parliament, men speak with heavy words and light hearts, while the real burden is carried by the poor farmer who must choose whether to give his only son to the state or to the grave. This is the politics of cruelty. Those with power start wars they will never fight, and those without power fight wars they will never understand. This is war, like many before it is. It's built on the backs of the forgotten. A young man from Amhara dies on mountain defending poison that will be retaken in a week. A soldier from Tigray loses his leg in a town that no one longer exists. And the generals, they sip coffee, they pose for cameras, they speak for sacrifice as if it were currency, never asking who paid for it and with what.
If you have heard special lesson on Ethiopian, please share this video, like and subscribe to spread the truth about suffering in Ethiopia.
Every bomb dropped in a conversation never had, every ambush is failed negotiation. The powerful argue about what language the constitution should be, and the poor lose their tongues in fear. They speak less now, not because they agree, but because the grief takes away language. What is there to say when your brother, your friend, your son is reduced to a headline? What can you say when your village is found in a game that even God seems to have turned his face from? This is not a war for tribalism. It's not a war of ancient hate. That is what they want you to believe, that the poor hate each other for being born on the wrong key. But they do not. The hate is taught, it's broadcasted, it's shouted from loudspeakers by men who dip in God's homes, while the poor are told to die for dignity. And what dignity is there in this? Is it dignified to bury children before they marry, to send orphans to school with no shoes because their father died in uniform he was forced to wear? Is it dignified to lose a leg in a war that your village did not vote for? No, there's no dignity. There's only survival. A survivor has a price. You lost your innocence first, then your faith, then your sense of home. Many no longer know what it means to be Ethiopian. They have seen the state turn into a shadow, something that appears only when it wants something. Taxes, soldiers, votes. Never when people need help, bread or peace. In both Amhara and Tigray, the poor now speak the same silent language. It's a language of thunder, it's a language of hunger, of wants, of disillusionment. They look at their leaders not as a protectors, but as a distant kings playing with maps and flags. For the young man in Kobo and a teenage girl in Shari, the word government no longer means anything sacred. It's a ghost, a name used to take from them, never to give. Some still believe in Ethiopia, others believe Ethiopia has forgotten them, and in absence of belief, desperation grows, hatred grows, and the war machine continues. It's not bullets that destroy nations, it's indifference from those who can stop the bullets. What this country has suffered, it's not just conflict, it's a moral collapse, it's a spiritual decay. Disguised as national pride, leaders speak of peace but fund war. They promise elections but deliver executions. They raise flags while the people raise graves, and in the distance the world watches quietly, diplomatically, while Ethiopia bleeds beneath the feet of men who call themselves servants of the people but act as owners of lives. Part 4. Philosophy of blood. What's war? What is war really? Strip away the speech, the propaganda and the headlines. What are you left with? Blood, scream, silence and dust. The dust of villages abandoned in fear. The dust of memories buried beneath rubble. The dust that settles over a child's lifeless body. The dust that settles over the child's lifeless body before his name is even mourned. War, in its purest form, is not a political event, it's a political collapse. It's when logic is twisted to justify pain, when killing becomes routine, when survival becomes the most violent form of existence. Ethiopia, ancient and spiritual, has become a battlefield where bullets speak louder than prayers, and the wisdom of elders has been replaced by the arrogance of men with microphones. And yet, we ask, is it the fate of every nation that refuses to listen to its own people? France fan on one side. Violence is man recreating himself. But what's a war recreating in Ethiopia? A new nation? No, it's recreating trauma. Generational suffering. Orphans who will one day raise children with stories not of peace but of revenge. We are not building a better Ethiopia through its bloodshed. We are not building resentment. Anger passed like inheritance, and even in the quietest corners of Hama and Tigray, that anger grows like weeds in abandoned farms. War creates more than wounds. It creates memory. Memory is soaked in fear, in humiliation, in the sound of boots outside your door, and the feelings of hiding your name in your throat, because the wrong word could cost you your life. Blood is not just a physical fluid, it's a symbol. In this country it flows as currency. Some spill it, some trade it, some watch it coldly, professionally, as if it were water. But the poor, they wear it on their hands, on their homes, on the ground where their children once played. There is no philosophy deep enough to explain the look in a mother's eyes when she recognizes her son's corpse by the shirt she ironed. No theology can justify why churches are bombed and mosques are burned. If God watched, he must be weeping, or orphans. Or perhaps he has gone deaf from all the shootings in his home. He has gone deaf from the shootings in his name. This is not about who is right or wrong anymore. That conversation expired after the first innocent life was taken, after the first mass grave, after the first school turned into a command post. Now, the only question worth asking is, what does it mean to kill your own people while claiming to lead them? What does it mean to label your brother's rebel because he disagrees with your truth? What kind of governance turns disagreement into execution. The philosopher Camus once said, the welfare of the people has always been the alibi of tyrants. And in Ethiopia, that alibi is spoken in every language by every faction, by every suit who sighs for the people, while crushing them underfoot. But perhaps the greatest tragedy is not like violence itself, but how normal it has become. Children in Desi or Adua no longer cry when they hear gunfire. They simply pause, wait, then continue. This is not resistance. This is not resilience. This is trauma. This is how a nation forgets what peace feels like, when the absence of war becomes a luxury, not a right. And the philosophy wants the pursuit of wisdom became a game of justifying the unjustifiable. Leaders caught philosophers while ignoring the people. Those philosophers died trying to defend. This is intellectual betrayal. It's a moral fraud. It's the elevation of the words over lives. And yet the blood keeps flowing. It flows past slogans, past policies, past the worn-out promises of politicians who hold prayer breakfast with hands that signed orders from war. The question is not why this happened. The question is, why does it keep happening? Why does Ethiopia, a nation older than most empires, repeat the same circle, repeat the same cycle of suffering? Is it tribalism? Is it greed? Is it the colonial ghost whispering old boundaries into a new mind? Or is it something more terrifying that we as a people have begun to defend, have begun to find comfort in violence that's no longer flinch when this becomes a neighbor? Blood has no dynasty, no region, no party, and the same color in Gondar as in Mekelle, and when it spines, it does not argue about politics. It simply stands. It makes history. It makes us. And no amount of reconciliation, conferences, or peace treaties will wash that away unless we first confess this truth. Part 5. A land without sons. Walk through the villages of Amara and Tigray now, and you will feel it, the emptiness, not the silence of peace, but the kind of quiet that follows after screaming, the kind of stillness that only comes after enough people have died that even grief has grown tired. These are lands without sons. Lands where the strongest shoulders no longer carry water from rivers but are buried beneath them. Where school classrooms sit half empty, not because children have moved to better cities, but because they have moved to graves. A nation without its sons is not just a wounded, it's a dying, because sons are not just people. They are possibilities. They are the arms that would build tomorrow, the legs that would carry a country forward, the minds that could have written books instead of bleeding into soil. The war has taken more than bodies. The war has taken more than bodies. It has taken the rhythm of weddings that once filled the air with joy, the rhythm of harvest that used to bring neighbors together. Now the only rhythm is that of funerals, the slow pounding of drums for the dead, the wailing of mothers as they collapse beside fresh daggers. In one town in South Gondar, a priest said he has performed more burial services in last year than baptisms in the last decade. In Aksum, an old man said he no longer remembers the names of his grandchildren because all he is memorizing now are the names of the dead. The war has poisoned the very heartbeat of the land. And what does a country become when its future is buried before it's born? A young man who might have become engineers, teachers, farmers, poets are gone. And those who remain, they walk with limbs, both physical and invisible. They carry the scars of war, not just on their skin, but in their thoughts. They speak less, they smile less, they dream less. They have learned that life in Ethiopia is not promised. That even if you are right, even if you are innocent, even if you are loyal, you are not safe. Because this land has betrayed its sons. It has asked for their blood and given them nothing in return but grief, silence, in a country that forgets them the moment their bodies fall. What do the mothers say now? In Lalibela, when mother still cooks for two, even though her son is gone, His plate must not be empty, she says, in case he comes back in a dream. In Tigray, a woman who lost both her husband and son in the same month walks to church every day with 2 candles, one for each grave, one for each grave she visits. She lights them not in hope, but in sorrow. I no longer pray for peace, she said. I no longer pray for peace, she said. I pray not to feel anymore. These are the prayers of a broken nation, not for victory, not for justice, just for numbness, for the mercy of no longer remembering what joy used to feel like. And the children who grow up in this land without sons, they are growing in shadows of trauma, raised by mothers who weep silently and fathers who stare out windows looking for the future that refuses to arrive. Those children play with toy guns made of wood. They already know the name of politicians, but not because I understand politics, but because their fathers died saying these names. They already know how to hide when they hear a plane overhead. They already know that hope is dangerous. That's better not to expect anything from your country. Because Ethiopia does not return what it takes. It does not apologize. It does not bury its sons without honor. It does not bury its sons with honor. It buries them with silence. This is the land in mourning. And mourning is not just black. And mourning is not just black clothes and funerals. It's a slow decay of meaning, a gradual collapse of it in Amhara highlands, in the dusty roads of Tigray. There are no parades for the lost, no banners, no plaques, just mothers walking slower, fathers speaking softer in the air itself, heavy with names no longer spoken aloud. How many sons are gone? No one knows, no one wants to count, because numbers make it real, and this war, reality is unbearable. But this cannot go on. A country cannot survive if it eats the very ones meant to carry it. A tree cannot grow without its roots, and a nation cannot grow when its sons are buried like seeds with no sun. Ethiopia is not just losing a generation, it's losing identity, its humanity, its chance to begin again. And the longer we wait, the more we pretend this war is about borders and politics. The more sons we will lose. The last part. The war beyond guns. War does not end when the gunfire stops. No, that's a lie. That's a lie politicians tell when they sign treaties with shaking hands and hollow words. No, that's a lie politicians tell you they sign treaties with shaking hands and hollow words. That's a fantasy printed in newspapers when a ceasefire is declared. As if silence means peace, as if absence of violence means healing. But the war in Ethiopia has never been just about bullets. It's a war that crawls beneath the skin, settles in the heart, and lives in the mind long after the soldiers leave. The true battlefield now lies in the eyes of the survivors, in the children who flinch at the thunder because it sounds too much like artillery, and the young girls who no longer trust nightfall because that's when the screaming always started. In the men who return from the front lines with their bodies intact, but their souls shattered. This war is no longer about land, it's about memory. What happens to a nation that forgets how to feel, that learns to stop our bodies without looking, that bears grief beneath nationalism and never speaks its name? In both Amhara and Tigray, war has rewritten in the human soul. People know, smile with their mouths, but never with their eyes. Weddings are celebrated quietly, as if joy must apologize for existing. Churches and mosques are full, not with hope, but with silence. Even prayers has become mechanical because faith without safety is just ritual. A war beyond gun. The war beyond guns is the one that no drone can see. The internal erosion of meaning. When children ask, why did my brother die? And no one dares to answer honestly. When a widow speaks to a framed photo for hours each day because it listens better than the government ever did. The damage is generational. The child in Gondar who watched his father dragged from his house will not forget. A teenage girl in Tigray who had to flee barefoot during the shellings will carry that panic for life. And when those children grow, what will they become? Will they trust again? Will they love without fear? Or will they inherit the bitterness, the suspicion, the ghost of revenge dressed as justice? This is the slow war, the quiet war, the war that eats countries from the inside out. It does not get televised. It does not make speech. It simply waits in trauma, in poverty, in broken institutions until one day the people erupt again. Not because they want war, but because they were never truly given peace. The education system has collapsed in many areas, not just because buildings were destroyed, but because minds have been. What good in textbook in the town where yesterday's teacher was buried in a mass grave? What use in curriculum to a child who saw the cousin bleed out on the floor? How do you teach algebra to someone who hasn't eaten in 2 days and sleeps beside rebel? These children are not being educated, these are being forgotten. And forgotten children do not grow into citizens. They grow into silence, into survival, or into resistance. The war beyond guns destroys futures not with fire, but with neglect. And then there is a physiological war, a quiet madness that creeps in when a nation turns against its own reflection. Many people no longer believe in the idea of Ethiopia. That word so old, so sacred, so proud, has been wounded. For some it means betrayal, for others it means a loss of family, harm, or dignity. The promise of unity is now a whisper in Ethiopia, whispering in empty rooms. Politicians still speak of one people, one nation, but the people no longer feel like one. The scares are too deep, the bloodlines, the bloodiness red, and the lies too loud, until those wounds are named, not hidden. Until the state learns to grieve with its people, not over them. There will be no nation. There will be no nation. Only fragments. Only echoes. The war beyond guns is also spiritual. In the land where God was once the center of life, now many ask, where was God? Where was God when my child died? Churches have been refuge shelters. Mosques have turned into burial sites. The sacred has become touched by the profane. Even priests and imams now speak less of heaven and more of survival. Some have become the symbol of resistance, others have been silenced, but the question remains in every broken heart. If God exists, did he leave Ethiopia? And so, we end not with the conclusion, but with a caution, because the truth is that the story is not over. The war may shift, the gun may pause, the flags may rise and fall, but the soul of a nation does not heal on a command. Healing will take time, courage, truth, and above all, remembrance, because forgetting is a final violence, and we must not forget. Let the names of lost be spoken, let the mothers be heard, let the injured be seen, and let the leaders who caused this and all sides be held accountable. Ethiopia is not too old to die, but it's too sacred to keep bleeding like this. Absolutely. Here is a powerful, sorrowful, and thoughtful, provoking conclusion you can use to provoke Ethiopian society to say no to war, especially focusing on Amhara region and how politicians are playing dangerous games while the people suffer. Look around Ethiopia. Hear the cries of mothers in Amhara whose sons have vanished into the battlefield, not for glory, not for justice, but for the cruel ambitions of distant politicians. These leaders from Tigray and the federal government sit in their offices, playing their deadly chess games, moving pounds like our children and brothers, while the poor, the innocent, the unaware, bleed and die without ever truly understanding why. The war is not theirs. The war is not theirs. It's a tragedy of all of us. It's a theft of our future, a destruction of our unity, and the breaking of our souls. Yet who holds the cards? Who profits from this courage? Not the struggling farmer in Amhara, not the mother clenching her empty hands, not the youth who dreams of peace but walks to gunfire. It's a time for every Ethiopian heart to awaken from the nightmare fed by lies and manipulation, to refuse to be the cannon fodder, to refuse to be the cannon fodder of politicians who hide behind ethnicity, nationalism, and rhetoric while their people perish, to sigh with no voice, to sigh with one voice, no to war. Enough bloodshed, enough broken families, enough meaningless battles fought for power and pride, while the common man pays the highest price. If we do not stand together now, the darkness will consume all of us. Let this be the moment when the people of Ethiopia rise up at the game of the powerful and demand peace. True peace that restores dignity, heals wounds, and builds future, where no mother will weep for lost son in senseless war. Say it loud, say it clear. No to war, no to politicians, games, no to the destruction of our homeland. This is our land, our people, our future. Let peace be the legacy we have